This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's almost as good as watching that clip of Garrett Bischoff eating that piledriver on the steel stage on an endless loop. I can't even remember the last time TNA put on this many impacts in a row, one after another, that I enjoyed this much. It's been a long time. Not saying it was a perfect show. Outside of the main event, the wrestling was pretty forgettable, but everything else I thought was very well done. They improved on some things from last week, and generally they were very focused on hyping up the Turning Point themed Impact, which, as it turns out, is this coming Thursday, which I was not aware of until now. So this wasn't really a wrestling show, it was a hype show. And in that aspect, I thought the show did its job. Something I've noticed the last couple of weeks is that they're structuring these shows a little differently, with one storyline kind of taking the focus and being the through line for the entire episode, something they cut to periodically all night to kind of give a sense of continuity and tying segments together so things don't feel quite so random. Last week it was Angle and Rude. This week it was Anderson and the Aces of Eights. They started the show off, and it looks like we finally have an ETA for the end of this piss-poor faction. The segment doesn't go too long. Bully Ray and Anderson do all the talking. Tessmacher shows off her mad twerking skills a little bit, which I will never, ever complain about. And they set up Bully and Anderson at Turning Point. If Anderson wins, Aces of Eights are done. Finished. Finito. Gone. Never to return. Thank you. Now, was all this kind of last minute and set up very quickly? Sure. But you know what? Who gives a shit? This crappy club is months and months and months past the expiration date. Anything that hastens its ultimate demise is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Nobody cares about you guys. At all.
This led to Nux and Anderson in a match that was pretty slow and pretty boring, with Nux just sleepwalking through the whole thing. Anderson wins, which then led to a number of backstage pre-tapes throughout the show, which then led to one of the best endings to Impact ever, with Anderson pile-driving Garrett Bischoff on a steel stage. And did I mark out for that? You bet Tessmacher's sweet, sweet ass I did. That was freaking awesome. Could this be the end of Garrett Bischoff in TNA? Well, his safety net is gone now that his dad is no longer executive producer. He can't play the nepotism card anymore. I don't know, Garrett. If you want to keep your spot on the roster, you're going to have to get by on your own merits from now on. Ugh. Does anyone else find it funny that with Anderson getting rid of the Aces of Eights, he's basically doing the job that Sting said the Main Event Mafia finished last week? I just thought that was odd. I believe this was the first week that TNA has incorporated these Impact 365 videos into the show. You know, these promos that the wrestlers have supposedly been given the freedom to write and shoot themselves. I think that's a great move because a lot of these things have been really entertaining, especially the ones with bad influence. And I love this concept because in some cases the wrestlers are going to know what their characters will say and do better than a writer ever will. So if you just get out of their way and let them do their thing, it can lead to some really great stuff. Like that What to Do When You Meet Bad Influence video. Hysterical! I was laughing my ass off. Of course, on Impact, they can only use the ones that further the storylines and characters. We saw a little bit of that here, and, you know, so far so good. Buy WWE 2K14, the greatest video game of all time! One thing TNA improved on by leaps and bounds this week, and I cannot stress enough what a huge step up this was hyping these World Title Tournament matches. It seemed like a big chunk of the show was devoted to this. They did a really good job hyping up the Aries angle main event. They talked it up throughout the whole show. They gave it a hype video, which is what the Full Metal Mayhem match last week was missing. And they devoted an entire segment just to hyping up Rude vs. Storm and Joe vs. Magnus for next week. Tremendous! This is exactly what they should have been doing the week before, damn it! Now, the gimmicks of the matches, bull rope, false count anywhere, or whatever it was, do still feel pretty unnecessary. Those I could do without. But by the end of this segment, with that shot of Storm and Rude and Joe and Magnus facing off with each other, I didn't even care. They devoted the time to it, and they made these two matches look like really big, important, can't-miss matches. I'll give TNA kudos on something. They seem like they're trying really hard to rationalize these Friends of AJ Styles commercials that are airing during Impact. They did a 365 video of Dixie meeting with Spike TV people, trying to figure out how this could happen. You saw her losing her shit backstage when the commercial aired this week. How is this happening? How are they doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And that helps. It's still really far-fetched, but at least Dixie is reacting appropriately. It doesn't plug every plot hole, though. They still haven't explained how this person or persons are able to use that Impact Wrestling footage in this way. I mean, if this were real, Dixie's lawyers would have an airtight case and they'd be able to put a stop to that real fast. I kind of doubt we'll ever get an explanation for that one, but at least they're trying. They're doing what they can to make this seem slightly less implausible. I don't know if it's going to work, but they get an A for effort. Probably the thing I was most looking forward to for the last few weeks was the start of Gail Kim's open challenge to women outside of TNA. Now, this knockout division has been starving for new talent for a long time, like a couple of years now. So any fresh women's matchup that we could get from this would be a wonderful thing. Now, they did cheat a little bit here. And technically, the Blossom Twins are not from outside the company. They've been under developmental contracts for close to a year now. But they gave us a knockout match that we actually haven't seen a million times. And with the UK tour not far off, you had to figure the Blossoms' debut was coming up pretty soon. So they did Gail versus Hannah, really just a squash match, and I was okay with that. If this is going to be like the Awesome Kong Open Challenge that introduced Taylor Wilde, and I think that's a safe bet, I suspect it'll start out with Gail just destroying these girls, but each week the challengers will get a little bit tougher, until she finally finds one that gives her more than she can handle. So we might have to wait a couple of weeks for that woman to show up, whoever she might be, but in the meantime, at least we'll be getting some new matches from the women that we haven't seen before. Potential new female talents, getting a shot on TV, and I'll take that over Gail versus ODB for the 10 billionth time any day of the week.
Yes! 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 Yes!
And don't forget, while the Awesome Kong Challenge was used to debut Taylor Wilde, Daphne and the artist formerly known as Some Jobber Bolt were also used for that, and they ended up getting signed as well. So it's possible that this angle could be a gateway for not just one new knockout, but several. You never know. I think Candice LeRae and Santana Garrett are probably the most likely women to show up, and they both had tryouts recently, and they're both definitely teasing something big on Twitter. So stay tuned on that one. Buy WWE 2K14, the greatest video game of all time! This Joseph Park promo damn near made my head explode. All this taunting from bad influences made him feel like he's got something to prove. He wants to prove that he can be just as good a wrestler as his brother Abyss. So he decides to challenge his brother Abyss to a match at Turning Point. Yeah. Joseph Park versus Abyss.
Say what?
We are through the looking glass here, guys. I don't know how the hell they're going to do this, how they're going to pull this off, but goddammit, I'm really intrigued. Call me crazy, call it morbid curiosity, but I can't fucking wait to see this. There's every possibility in the world that it could end up being really, really stupid, and I reserve the right to bitch about it afterward, but they got my attention here. Just to see what they do with this, I'm so interested right now. And hell, why stop there? If we're really going outside the box on this one, let's up the ante. Let's take it even further. Let's take it all the way to that next level, brother. Since they don't have a match at Turning Point yet, I say, let's do Bad Influence versus Suicide and Curryman. Book it.
Yes!
Wow. Ethan Carter III has now graduated from defeating Furnham and Barnes one-on-one to beating them 2 at a time in handicap matches. My God. Is there anything EC3 can't do? For an ordinary man, this would be an insurmountable task, like David versus 2 Goliaths. But EC3 is no ordinary man. He's way up here. All the rest of us, we're way, way, way down here. Now we should all strive to be half the man that EC3 is, even if that's an impossible task and we all know it. And God bless him, he gives us a hero to look up to every single Thursday night, even if he does it by raising the bar so high that the rest of us could never even hope to reach it on our best day. Screw all you morons that cheer Furnham and Barnes and boo EC3. Have you completely lost your minds? Don't boo this man. He's a Carter, damn it. The world needs him.
Oh, my brother, testify!
All right. I wanted something different, and now this angle is doing something different. Good. Thank you. I don't know how much more mileage there is in EC3 versus Furnham and Barnes. My guess is not very much, but it's still entertaining. I got a good chuckle out of this. I do think it's time we started seeing more of his character, though. Hopefully they'll give him more mic time soon, maybe get him in some backstage segments so we can see more of his personality, because he does have one, and that's ultimately what's going to sell this character. Aside from that, still really enjoying this. Buy WWE 2K14, the greatest video game of all time! Not shockingly, the only really interesting match we got this week was Kurt Angle versus Austin Aries. A really good match, though probably a step or two below what it could have been because they were both selling injuries. Still a great main event, though. But with one problem. Aries spends half the match selling an ankle injury, and then Angle wins with a crossface. And yeah, he's sticking it to Bobby Roode because that's Roode's submission hold, I get it. But that doesn't change the fact that the psychology here was completely ass backwards. If Angle's gonna win, that's fine. Just win with an ankle lock. Nevertheless, I was happy with the match. It hyped Angle versus Roode, it hyped the rest of the world title tournament, and that's something that this whole episode did really well in my opinion, just hype in general for Turning Point. I'm excited for a lot of those matches now, and with TNA's inconsistent hype machine, that's not always the case. So, well done on that. Another really good Impact this week. That makes several in a row now. It's been a long time since I felt this good about the product. I mean it, I'm really happy about this right now. And it would take an awful lot to spoil my good mood at this. We interrupt this video to bring you a breaking news bulletin. Coming to you live with this earth-shattering announcement is 4th Dimension Fool Killer. In an update for the news that I broke 2 weeks ago regarding the sale of Fool Killer 99's YouTube channel, I can now confirm that meetings between the owners and a potential buyer are taking place, and in fact have reached a critical stage. Many employees expect the sale to be made official any day now, and the buyer in question is someone that wrestling fans just might be familiar with.